Hello and welcome to another video from the only channel you need to not only survive the current apocalypse but actually enjoy it. And today's video is going to be a walk around tour of my woods. Now behind me is my house and we're going out the front door of my house. Now if you've watched enough of my videos, you know I have a greenhouse and a chicken house right outside my front door. And so right now we're walking between the greenhouse and the chicken house. Now we're walking through my back gate, and right here is my bridge which goes over my creek. We're walking over that. Now once I get off that bridge, I am officially in my woods. Now what you're about to see is very primitive. It doesn't look very nice, but we had so much rain this year that I was unable to do anything with this first part of our trail. So a lot of this has grown up. There are plans to get all this straightened out. And in fact, here you'll see the very first place where we have to walk through mud. And for the last couple of months, I've been walking through about 6 inches of water here. All right, standing just forward of that muddy spot I have to walk through, the worst of the muddy spots, we're right by the creek. And I want to show you this creek. And it goes all the way across my property from one corner to the next. So I've got about 400 foot of creek altogether. And what I call creek is really just a big drainage ditch. For quite a few weeks this has been flowing really fast. But now that the water's pretty much receded, it's just sitting there stagnant. It's got a lot of fish in it, turtles and snakes, and we enjoy it. And plus it attracts animals. So you're always going to see things like deers and raccoons and possums and armadillos back here. Okay, we're past the mud. Now we're going to continue down this little trail. And this really was a nice trail. At one time, I had one year where it stayed so dry for so long. It was a really bad drought. I was able to actually get back here and manicure this down really beautifully. And when the ferns came back, it was just ferns. No vines, no shrubs, just ferns. It was just so gorgeous. But for the last couple of years, we haven't had that bad of a drought, so I haven't been able to get my mower in there. But that'll happen again. And if it doesn't, I'll figure out a way to cut it even while it's muddy. Now this area that we're coming into now is new. I have cut trails back here before, had a little bit of a clearing. But this year I really cracked down and I cleared this area out and actually cut the grass. So this is basically a new area that was not here before. We had a clearing here and a trail, so it wasn't too bad to clear it out. We just had a little bonfire here the other night. And if you notice, I actually worked on this for about a week. Just came out every day with my loppers, and I got a little electric battery operated chainsaw. I was able to take out some of the bigger trees and throw them in the fire and burn them. But like that hammock right there, that's a brand new thing we just put in. We saw a hammock sticking out of somebody's garbage. My wife said, let's pick that up, and I said, no, I don't want garbage. But I've got a friend that's a net maker, and he makes hammocks, and the problem he has is getting hardware. So I stopped to get the hammock out of the trash just so I could retrieve the hardware from it, and it's a good hammock. I mean, it really is nothing wrong with it other than it's a little faded. So we went and bought a couple of hooks, put them in these trees, and now we have a hammock. And this area, by the way, that I cleared is not my land, not even close. I probably wouldn't have cleared it this much, but my goal is to get access from my property directly out here to this area I've shown you before. This is where the power lines go several lots over from where I live. And see, there are always deer tracks out here. All right, so we've looked at that. And now I'm going to show you the machine that I use to keep this area cut nice and clean. And it's there's a lot of companies making them now. I remember the first one I ever saw was called a DR trimmer mower, and that was probably 15 years ago. But from what I understand, everybody makes these things, and mine is called a Sears high wheel trimmer. All right, we're about to come into an area that is one of the earliest areas that I cleared when I was talking about the first trail. Well, going up through here and past that towel that's hanging on that tree is where my first trail was. In fact, where that tree is, the trail went right up to the edge of that tree. And I spent about a full day just clearing vines and limbs off of that tree, as well as the brush around it, just so I could make a space big enough to walk around that tree. And here is the moor that I maintain this with. If you notice, the ground here looks like crushed velvet all the way to the back, and the forest will make that naturally once it's established, but this is not an established forest. I have areas here that I've been working for many years that are established, and I never have to do anything to them. But the things I did like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, you have to maintain them with a mower, because the roots of all the trees you cut down will continue to put up little trees. And this mower is not a regular lawnmower. You can't cut a grass back here with a regular lawnmower, because you know that if you've got these little stumps and you hit one of them with a regular lawnmower, it'll bend your blade and sometimes even bend your drive shaft, and so that's the end of that. But with this, it uses these little weed eater lines. It's like a big weed eater on wheels. This one's called a Sears high wheel trimmer. I've had one in the past that really was a high wheel trimmer, but they no longer make them. This is what Craftsman makes now. They also have things like a DR trimmer mower. I've got a friend near St. Louis that just recently bought one from like Home Depot or Lowe's. So pretty much everybody makes some kind of a wheeled trimmer mower now. And that's what you need if you're going to be cutting in a ground that is filled with these little stumps and roots and things like this that will tear up a regular lawnmower. I love mine. I hate doing work. I hate doing physical labor. In fact, it's almost impossible for me now. But I love being able to make my woods look like crushed velvet. All right, now this area is another area that's completely grown up because I haven't been able to cut it for a couple of years due to the fact that it's been too wet. My land is basically swampland, and so in the years where it doesn't dry up, I can't do much with it. I can't push my mower. But if you look behind me, and I don't know how much you can see, but behind me about 75 feet maybe is my bridge that I came over initially, but last time I went that way. This time I'm going through my regular trail, the original trail that I cut after Katrina. Now, prior to Katrina, I had worked on this area for about 5 years. But when Katrina came through, it knocked down so many trees that it took 3 years for me to get back here again, because everything was impassable. I mean, you just can imagine huge trees laying everywhere with stickers all wrapped around them. And when the sunlight came through, we ended up getting so much of this understory stuff growing that it was absolutely, I almost gave up. I went about 3 years where I didn't do anything. And then I came back out again. Now, where I just passed through, that was a big milestone for me. When I came back to working on this, getting to that big oak tree and being able to walk through there, that's where my original trail was a big milestone. But the first year that I worked out here, I maybe worked well, you know, I've got health problems, so 20 hours a week, maybe 6 months, something like that. Don't hold me to that, because I really don't know. Just to get a trail to about right here. And this year we've kind of widened this out a lot so that we can get to my big oak trees. I've got some big oak trees on my property that I haven't gotten to for years because there was a yard there that connected to a man's house. Now, he hasn't taken care of his lawn for maybe 5 years, so it's grown up enough that I'm now free to clear around my oak trees and actually not be in somebody else's yard. See, I never wanted to clear around my trees because I didn't want to be in my woods and see somebody else's house, but now I can do that. All right, we're going to just show what it looks like as we approach this big oak tree, 300-year-old oak tree, 300 years or older. From my trail, this is my property, except the tree is just to the right of my property. So if I had another, however wide that is, 5 feet, if I had another 5 feet of property, I could actually make legal claim to this tree. But I'm going to show you what this looks like on the other side. Not much light gets through this tree's canopy, so we don't have too much. A lot of this could be taken out with a high wheel trimmer. And I haven't done so in the past because my neighbor always maintained this as a lawn. But he hasn't done so since Hurricane Katrina. And so I could get out here and cut it, and it wouldn't take too much effort. But in the past, if I'd have done that, I would have been right there in my neighbor's backyard. And as you can see, his house is no longer visible because everything's grown up. So I can reclaim this area and just treat it as my own. This is all my property right here. And here's the canopy. I know, it's beautiful. It's mind-blowing. We just had some friends come down from Kentucky, and this was blowing their minds. I actually took them to another tree, the only other tree I know of in my area that's older than this. Okay, we're leaving that one big oak tree that is not on my property, and we're going down the trail that I've widened out this year. And we're now right about at the area where I stopped. My first year of progress came to a conclusion, and where we're about to walk is the trail that I cut on my second year of working out here. And I still walk, just by habit, I actually walk the same trail that I originally cut however many years ago, you know, maybe 3 years after Katrina. Just by habit, because right now you can see I don't have to. I've got this whole area widened out like a yard. It's just like, for some reason, I always go the same directions I went when I first cut this. And we made a trail that came probably right about here. And this is pretty much the edge of my property, and I stopped. If you can see that bright spot of light through the woods there, that's where we came out from under the power lines. And just to show you, we'll do a little panoramic view of this whole area. This woods goes on for a lot farther, maybe 500 more feet. There's one of my chicken tractors. And where I was showing you the clearing underneath the really huge oak trees, that's it right there. So you see, it's not only that I can just, it's a freebie for me to get out there and cut that grass, but to cut through these little trees, all I'd have to use is loppers. I could make this just as open. So I could actually just like be under those trees from right here. Right now we're on another piece of property that doesn't belong to me. And it seems like my third attempt at getting out here and doing something made me extend my trail to right about here. And that was basically the end of making trails, because from that point on, every year was dedicated to widening the trails. And so now we have this, what is basically a yard, because the trails have gotten so wide that they're no longer even discernible as trails. Okay, so now we're at the far side of my property, which I think my property is long and skinny. So this is across the skinny part. I got 200 feet, and then there's maybe another 200 or 300 feet going past that. That's not my property that I keep clear, or I keep clean like this. But what I want to show you now is where my property ends. And I don't know if you can see it from here. There's a skinny tree with a little orange flag to the left. That's my property line. So everything I'm going to show you now does not belong to me, but I maintain. And I actually maintain 7 properties, mine and 6 others. Not completely, but just properties that no one's using. And all of this is somebody else's. But I come back here. I used to come back here to pray because it was the farthest from anybody and no one could hear my voice. But now I pray on my property just because I got a bigger tree. It's easier to stand up when I get done. Alright, this here area is an addition that I made 2 years ago. And last year I didn't do anything out here. I was so busy with my YouTube channel, I'd never stopped to come maintain this part of the woods. And so it was almost like starting all over, because so many things had gotten so big that I had to get back on my butt with my loppers and just cut things. And here's an area that, just to show you, 2 years ago, this was like the rest of my forest. It was like a lawn. And as you can see, it is not a lawn now. So for me to get that back to looking like my crushed velvet lawn, I would have to spend probably an entire day on my butt with loppers cutting this stuff back. So let that be a warning to you. Once you get it established, you don't have to do much of anything. But for the first year, you really have to stay on top of it, and you really have to at least give it a once over every year for 5 years. And it's good to just do that every year no matter what, but at the end of 5 years you can walk away and probably 5 years later still be able to tackle the job with just a weed trimmer. See, all of this would have to be done by hand. My little mower won't cut through some of that, it's too big. Alright, so now I'm just going to go ahead and walk my trail from, not from start to finish, but from finish to start, just so you can see how much area I have to enjoy myself. And I do. I come out here every day with my dog, and I walk this same path maybe 5 or 6 times a day, and he loves it too. And you know, I really, just as long as I have some place to come like this where I don't see any structures, I'm really happy. And I know you are too. If you're watching this, you're probably daydreaming right now, or maybe you're packing up so you can go out in your property, which looks just like this or similar. But you know, this isn't all my land. What you'll see here is mostly my land, but I have cleared over onto 6 other properties, 7 including my own. And I don't believe in paper. You know, we live in a paper world and it disgusts me. So having a deed to something doesn't mean anything. I mean, if you have a deed, a rich guy can decide to build a poison factory on your property, and it takes about 10 minutes for him to fill out the paperwork to take your land away. Or the government can just raise your property taxes from $2 a year to $2,000 a year, and you lose your house just on a whim. So having a deed in my hand doesn't make me feel like property belongs to me. So it's not a big deal for me to go onto property I don't belong and clean it up, make it pretty. Of course, I could just work on the property that's deeded to me and not work on anybody else's, because I do have quite a bit of property that isn't cleared yet or cleaned up yet. But even though I do have a deed for that property, I'm surrounded by neighbors that I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, and my neighbors are almost all still Jehovah's Witnesses. So when I work on my property up here, they can see me, and they all make a point of stopping to tell me how worthless I am, or to threaten me. If I take my dog over there, they throw poisoned weenies over the fence to my dog. So just to prove my point, just because you own something doesn't mean it's yours. In any case, there's going to come a day when we're going to have to live in that forest. So it'd be a good idea to get started making one. If you don't want to survive, don't listen to me.